Ah. Look at you sitting there, not even realizing what you just did. You walked through something that was designed to break you, trap you, humiliate you, bury you. And instead of collapsing like they predicted, you walked out untouched, unshaken, unbothered. They're confused, they're rattled, they're whispering under their breath, trying to make sense of how someone they counted out so confidently is still standing with that same cold presence that says, "I told you I wasn't the one to mess with." You don't see it, but they do. The shock on their faces is an entire sermon. They expected you to fold. They were waiting for you to crash. They tried to push you into corners because they assumed you were fragile. But fragile people don't walk away from hits like the one you took. Fragile people don't rise after a setup. Fragile people break. You didn't. You rose higher, harder, sharper. You survived something that was never meant to be survivable. And the craziest part? You did it without even throwing your full weight. You didn't strategize. You didn't retaliate. You didn't even flinch. You just existed through the attack. And that alone was enough to flatten whoever thought they were bold enough to challenge you. They never expected you to have that kind of endurance. They never expected your instinct to be that lethal. They never expected your presence to have that much pressure. But pressure is what you're built from. They finally see it now, and it terrifies them. The moment you walked away, something shifted in the atmosphere. You felt it only slightly, but they felt it fully. The shift of dominance. It's the moment the predator realizes the prey wasn't prey at all. The moment the hunter understands they were standing inches from someone who sees through motives, through manipulation, through ego. Every time someone tests you, you expose another part of your nature they underestimated. You don't do it intentionally. You don't perform. You don't pretend. You don't put on a show to intimidate anyone. You just handle the situation, and the situation exposes them instead. That's what scares them. They can't predict you. They can't calculate your moves. They can't measure your limits, because every time they think they found one, you blow right past it like you were warming up. What they don't understand is that you've survived far worse. You've been through wars long before they ever crossed your path. You've taken hits that came from places deeper than jealousy, messier than pettiness, darker than rivalry. You've rebuilt yourself from rubble, from wounds no one knew about, from betrayals you kept quiet, from nights you endured alone without asking anyone for help. So when someone with shallow intentions tries to break you, all they're doing is replaying battles you've already won. That's why your responses look effortless. That's why your recovery looks instant. They don't know the history behind your composure. They only see the outcome. They see you standing after something that should have left you in pieces, and instead of respecting your strength, they're terrified by it. You keep proving again and again that you're not the one to go against. And you're not proving it through loud reactions. You're proving it through the way life bends in your direction, through the way hypocrisy collapses around you, through the way people who try to sabotage you end up exposing themselves, through the way traps set for you always backfire, through the way your character cuts through confusion like a blade. You don't hurt people. You don't chase revenge. You don't spread chaos. But whenever someone tries to target you, their world shifts faster than yours ever will. That's why people talk. That's why people stare. That's why they gossip with their heads down. They're trying to figure out how you keep surviving hits that were supposed to end you. Someone recently saw this firsthand. They tried to take you down. tried to challenge you, tried to test your patience or undermine you. They thought they had you cornered. They assumed you would react emotionally, impulsively, carelessly. But that's not your nature. You stay calm while their nerves unravel. You stay grounded while their intentions shake. And before they even realized what was happening, they were the ones melting under the pressure of your presence. That's the pattern. Every time someone steps into the ring with you, they get hit by something they didn't prepare for. Your authenticity, your resilience, your ability to turn exposure into elevation. They think they're confronting someone ordinary. Instead, they're stepping into a force that doesn't fight the way they expect. The truth is, you don't even use your full potential in these situations. You don't lean into your strategic mind, your intuition, your instinct for reading people. You don't activate the depths of your patience or the precision of your energy. You simply respond with your natural self. And that alone is enough to dismantle someone whose intentions are unclean. They can't handle the pressure that comes from you simply being aligned. That's what destroys them. That's what makes them crumble. That's what makes them regret ever assuming you were soft enough to exploit. They call you intimidating behind closed doors because they can't wrap their minds around the peace you hold after conflict. They're used to people who retaliate loudly, who crumble publicly, who beg for favor or mercy. You don't do any of that. You move differently. You hold your integrity like armor. And every time they try to penetrate it, they end up exposing the weakness in themselves instead. That's what makes them uncomfortable. They didn't think someone could survive without playing dirty. They didn't think someone could rise without stepping over others. They didn't think someone could hold their power without announcing it. You break all of their assumptions, and the breaking is loud enough for others to hear. The reason people keep getting embarrassed when they try to challenge you is simple. They're operating from ego, and you're operating from core. Ego is flimsy, core is solid. Ego cracks under pressure, core sharpens. Ego needs an audience. Core doesn't need validation. So when they run toward conflict with ego and you walk into the same situation with core, the difference becomes a spectacle. They collapse, you rise. They panic, you center. They lose control, you maintain it without effort. That's the part that stings them the most, the effortless nature of your victory. They want to believe you got lucky. They want to believe you had support. They want to believe the situation favored you unfairly. But deep down, they know. They know the truth they never wanted to accept. You're built differently. You've walked through things people only read about. You've survived things most wouldn't recover from. You've seen betrayal in forms that would have shattered the average spirit. So when someone with surface-level confidence tries to bring you down, they're stepping into a conflict they will never win. You don't fear confrontation. You don't fear exposure. You don't fear losing people. You've lost enough already to understand that loss isn't death. It's refinement. Every loss shaped you. Every betrayal sharpened you. Every setback gave you new vision. Their attacks don't hurt you. They teach you. They remind you who stands on truth and who stands on ego. And because you've done your inner work, your external world protects you. That's what they didn't see coming. They thought you were unprotected, unaware, unprepared. But protection doesn't always look like defense. Sometimes protection looks like exposure of intention. Sometimes protection looks like divine timing. Sometimes protection looks like their own actions folding in on them. And that's exactly what happened. They thought they were targeting you. They ended up revealing themselves. They thought they were hurting you. They ended up hurting their own credibility. They thought they were weakening your authority. They ended up strengthening it. This is why people around you move differently now. They're cautious, they're quiet, they're observant. They don't want to end up like the last person who underestimated you. They saw how quickly the situation flipped. They saw how the one who came for you ended up looking foolish. They saw how you stood there with no retaliation, no bitterness, no outbursts, just presence. And that presence said everything. I survived this because it was never strong enough to touch me. That kind of strength is rare, and people know it when they see it. You haven't even unleashed your full potential yet. You've only shown fragments of your capability. You've only revealed traces of your power. And even those traces have humbled people who thought they had the upper hand. You're entering an era where every attack against you will expose itself faster. Every lie about you will collapse before it spreads. Every jealous soul who tries to undervalue you will end up proving your worth. That's why life keeps elevating you after every challenge. The challenges aren't setbacks, they're confirmations of who you are. And after this recent situation, something massive has awakened. People thought you were playing on their level, but now they see it. You're operating from a depth they can't reach. Your spirit doesn't break easily. Your presence doesn't fade under pressure. Your energy doesn't respond to crumbs or chaos. They looked at you like a target. They walked away, realizing you're a consequence of their own underestimation, a consequence of their own disrespect, a consequence of their own impatience. You're not someone who seeks conflict, but you're someone who ends it without trying. And here's the part they really weren't ready for. This wasn't even your retaliation. This wasn't your defense. This wasn't your comeback. This was your neutral state, your effortless state, your resting energy. You didn't even activate your full strength, and they still crumbled. Imagine what happens when you actually step into the next level of your evolution. Imagine what happens when you stop dimming your intuition. Imagine what happens when you stop tolerating nonsense out of politeness. Imagine what happens when you stop softening your boundaries to make others comfortable. Imagine what happens when you fully embrace that you're not built like the people around you. That's the shift they're sensing now. That's the reason they're watching you carefully. They know something is coming. They don't know what. They don't know when. They don't know how. But they feel it, the same way the air changes before lightning strikes. You weren't supposed to survive that situation. You weren't supposed to walk away untouched. They weren't expecting you to rise higher. But here you are, proving once again that you're not the one to play with. And as this realization spreads, the energy around you is about to transform in a way none of them can predict. Because what they just witnessed wasn't resilience, it was dominance. Not the loud, arrogant kind. The controlled, unshakable kind. The type that doesn't need to announce itself because it moves like truth. Silent, steady, and impossible to argue with. That's why they're unsettled. Not because you survived, but because you made survival look casual. You made what was supposed to destroy you look like a mild inconvenience. You made their attempt to weaken you crumble under the weight of your natural composure. That kind of strength isn't normal, and people know it when they see it. Right now, they're replaying every detail, trying to understand where they miscalculated. They thought they hit your limit. They thought they reached your breaking point. But instead of breaking, you expanded. Instead of collapsing, you clarified. Instead of retreating, you elevated. And that elevation wasn't something you forced. It was something triggered. a natural byproduct of someone attacking you with intentions too shallow to touch the depth you operate from. They were playing a small game, and you responded with the truth of who you are. Someone whose energy dismantles ego without effort. That's the part that stings them the hardest, the effortless nature of your victory. You didn't try to defend yourself. You didn't rush to correct narratives. You didn't lower yourself to their chaos. You just held your ground, and that ground turned into a spotlight on their weakness. They wanted to expose you. Instead, they exposed themselves. They wanted to embarrass you. Instead, they embarrassed their own character. They wanted to watch you fall. Instead, they watched their intentions collapse. This isn't the first time it's happened, and it won't be the last. But this time, it hit different because the audience was bigger, the pressure was heavier, and the outcome was undeniable. Someone in that situation, that little peon who thought they were bold enough to take you on, is sitting with regret right now. Regret for misjudging you. Regret for thinking you were easy to provoke. Regret for assuming you were soft enough to manipulate. They thought they could score points off of your name. They thought they could gain attention by provoking you. They thought they could climb by dragging you. But instead of rising, they dropped. Instead of gaining anything, they lost everything that mattered. Credibility, respect, composure. They didn't just fail. They failed in front of people whose opinions matter to them. And the worst part? You didn't have to raise a finger for that to happen. Your energy carried the consequence. Your presence distributed the outcome. Your authenticity created the collapse. They underestimated the weight of who you are. They didn't understand that you don't need to fight to win. You don't need to react to dominate. You don't need to shout to be heard. Your truth is heavy enough to break egos without you speaking a word. That's what they're finally starting to understand. You're not dangerous because of aggression. You're dangerous because of alignment. And aligned people don't lose battles designed by the insecure. You keep showing people that you're not the one to test, yet they keep trying because they confuse your calmness for weakness. They confuse your patience for passivity. They confuse your compassion for gullibility. They confuse your silence for permission. And every time they misinterpret you, you end up proving the same lesson with new intensity. Don't mistake a composed person for an easy target. Don't mistake a grounded individual for someone who won't defend themselves. Don't mistake a peaceful presence for a powerless one. You're not someone who unleashes chaos. You're someone whose presence exposes it. And exposure is exactly what they're dealing with now. They've been stripped bare in front of the same people they were trying to impress. They thought they were showing strength by coming for you. Instead, they showed insecurity. They thought they were showing dominance. Instead, they showed desperation. They thought they were showing boldness. Instead, they showed how fragile they truly are. That's the beauty of the situation. You didn't retaliate. You revealed, you didn't attack. You allowed their intentions to speak louder than their actions. Right now, people around them are rethinking their relationship with you. They're remembering moments when they misjudged you. They're remembering the times they took your silence for weakness. They're realizing that the person they once dismissed is someone who carries an authority they didn't respect until now. Your name is moving differently in conversations. Your presence is being evaluated with new eyes. The people who once overlooked you are feeling that uncomfortable tug in their chest, the realization that they misread you entirely. And the funny thing is, you're not even in your full form yet. This isn't your peak. This isn't your height. This isn't your maximum capability. This is you on a regular day. This is you handling conflict the same way you breathe, naturally. You're not even trying to impress anyone. You're not performing. You're not crafting image. You're not seeking validation. You're just being yourself. And somehow that self is enough to dismantle someone who tried to play with you. There's a reason they didn't see you coming. You don't walk around announcing your power. You don't flash your strength to get attention. You don't parade your intelligence to earn admiration. You move quietly, intentionally, observantly. You move like someone who knows their value without needing anyone to confirm it. That's why people underestimate you, not because you're weak, but because you don't advertise your strength. They don't understand that the most dangerous person in the room is always the one who doesn't need to prove anything. But the moment someone threatens your peace, that quiet strength reveals itself. And when it does, it leaves a mark that doesn't fade easily, a mark that forces people to rethink everything they assumed about you, a mark that forces even the loudest critics to reconsider their words. You didn't ask for this, you didn't chase this, you didn't provoke this, but your energy doesn't need chase or provocation. It responds to truth. And the truth is simple. You're built differently. Now everyone is adjusting their posture around you. Their tone changes. Their body language shifts. Their conversations become cautious. Their eyes linger a little longer, studying you, measuring you, trying to determine what else they misinterpreted. They can't figure you out. You confuse them because you don't move like the average person. You don't react like the average person. You don't break like the average person. You're not an average person. And they know it now. Something else is happening too. Something deeper, something more subtle. You're transitioning into a level of power that no one around you is prepared to acknowledge yet. They feel it, but they don't know how to articulate it. They sense it, but they can't name it. They see the shift in your presence, but they don't understand its source. You've stepped into a version of yourself that no longer tolerates disrespect, no longer entertains foolishness, no longer bends for comfort. You've entered a place of clarity, where your boundaries are razor sharp, your intuition is heightened, and your tolerance for nonsense is non-existent. This new version of you is what they're reacting to. The version that doesn't shrink. The version that doesn't seek acceptance. The version that doesn't internalize criticism from people who don't matter. The version that doesn't crumble just because someone else wants to feel powerful. That version is standing tall right now, and people are feeling it in their bones. They don't know what you're about to do next, but they know it's bigger than anything they've seen from you before. Because once someone survives an attack they weren't supposed to walk away from, they don't go back to who they were. They don't return to softness for the sake of making others comfortable. They don't dim their resilience for the sake of fitting in. They don't shrink their authenticity for the sake of being liked. You didn't survive just to return to the old version of yourself. You survived because something inside you evolved, something powerful, something irreversible, something expensive. Your survival wasn't luck, it wasn't chance, it wasn't coincidence. It was a declaration that you're protected, a declaration that your path isn't controlled by weak intentions, a declaration that no small-minded peon can shake someone built from purpose. And now that the dust has settled, people are starting to realize the truth they should have seen long ago. Messing with you has consequences, not because you'll fight them, not because you'll expose them, not because you'll destroy them, but because life itself steps in on your behalf. Every single time. That's the part they weren't prepared for. You're stepping into a new layer of influence now, a place where your presence alone causes people to check their motives, a place where your resilience sets the tone, a place where your growth becomes the benchmark others compare themselves to. And as this energy builds, something massive is about to unfold, something that will shift not only how people speak about you, but how they approach you entirely. Because you slayed another peon without effort, you survived what was engineered to crush you. You rose higher when you were supposed to fall lower. And now, they're realizing that if this is who you are when you're unbothered, then who will you become when you fully step into your next transformation? That question alone is shaking them. It's haunting the people who doubted you. It's echoing inside the minds of those who tried to test you. They can't stop replaying the moment you walked away from the situation they assumed would destroy you. Because it didn't just prove you're strong, it proved they never understood you at all. They built entire stories around your softness, forgetting that softness is not weakness, it's control. They misjudged your quiet nature, forgetting that quiet people often hold the deepest fire. They mistook your patience for submission, forgetting that patience is the trait of someone who knows they can win at any time. And now that time has come. Your next transformation isn't some subtle shift. It's a restructuring of how the world sees you. It's the moment when all the strength you've held internally begins leaking into every room you walk into. People will feel it in your presence before you even speak. That's the part no one can prepare for. The moment your power stops being internal and starts becoming unavoidable. You've spent so long building silently, healing internally, growing without applause, strengthening without attention. Now the results are too big to hide. The people who underestimated you are witnessing a truth they never expected. You're not just resilient, you're untouchable. You're not just surviving, you're rising. You're not just walking through conflict, you're rewriting the way conflict touches you. And the more this becomes clear, the more their fear grows, because they realize that the attack they designed for you didn't just fail. It activated something in you. That's the real story here. Not what they did, but what it awakened. There are levels of transformation that only reveal themselves when someone tries to tear you down. You don't find your sharpest instinct when you're comfortable. You find it when someone thinks they can target you. You don't discover your deepest strength when life is easy. You discover it when someone tries to break you. And every time this type of situation happens, it unlocks another part of you that people aren't ready to meet. This time, the part that awakened is the version of you that no longer grants access to the undeserving. The version that no longer wastes energy explaining yourself. The version that no longer softens your impact. The version that doesn't wait to be validated. The version that refuses to shrink for fragile egos. This version stands tall, even in the places where others want you small. This version isn't moved by whispers or rumors or projections. This version knows exactly who you are and who you are becoming. And that version, that's the one they weren't supposed to meet yet. They wanted the older version, the one they convinced themselves was manageable, the one who tried to keep peace with people who didn't deserve access to your peace. The one who tried to be considerate in environments that fed on your consideration, but when they pushed you too far, when they tried to create harm, when they thought they could watch you crumble, they triggered a transformation that doesn't reverse. You're stepping into a chapter where your strength is no longer invisible. Everything about you is sharpening. Your intuition, your boundaries, your presence, your awareness. You're no longer hoping people see your worth. Your worth shows itself. You're no longer waiting for respect. Respect is the default reaction people have when you walk into a room. And the people who took you casually are feeling that shift. It's pressing against their ego. It's shaking their confidence. It's reminding them of the consequences of underestimating someone built from purpose. Because you didn't just survive that situation, you walked out with lessons they never wanted you to learn. You walked out with clarity about who's real and who's pretending. You walked out with insight into motives you used to overlook. You walked out with a deeper understanding of your own value. Every piece of that situation gave you something to use. It sharpened your perception. It strengthened your foundation. It cleaned your environment. It purified your circle. It elevated your spirit. They thought they were hurting you, but they were refining you. Meanwhile, the one who came for you is shrinking. They're dealing with the recoil of their own actions. Every attempt they made to undermine you is now being traced back to them. Every whisper they spread is circling around and landing on their own credibility. Every move they made to disrupt you is now disrupting their own peace. They didn't understand one simple truth. You can't target someone who moves with clean intentions and expect to walk away unscathed. People are beginning to notice patterns. The person who came for you is suddenly quiet, suddenly humble, suddenly confused. The same peon who tried to poke at you is now dealing with exposure they can't control. They're realizing the cost of playing with someone who is protected, not just physically or emotionally, but spiritually. They didn't understand that when you carry alignment, life itself becomes your shield. They thought you were alone, but you weren't. You were guided, you were watched over, you were protected in ways they can't comprehend. And now, as you stand in this aftermath, you're seeing more clearly than ever. You're recognizing that not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone deserves your time. Not everyone deserves your kindness. Not everyone deserves your patience. Some people only understand boundaries when they collide with them. Some people only realize your worth when their attempt to destroy you backfires. Some people only learn your value when their attempt to cheapen you damages their own image instead. The world around you is shifting because you've reached a point where your presence can't be manipulated. You're no longer influenced by opinions from people who don't matter. You're no longer swayed by energy that doesn't match your vision. You're no longer accessible to those who use you as an emotional sandbox. You're no longer trying to save people who are committed to misunderstanding you. That is the transformation that's unfolding. Not a new version of you, but a truer version of you. This truer version is what they're afraid of. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're untouchable. Not because you're confrontational, but because you're unmoved. Not because you're powerful in a loud way, but because you're powerful in a way that is undeniable. Everything about you radiates a type of authority people can't explain, but can't deny. They feel it in the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you make decisions, the way you navigate challenges. You don't crumble, you don't fold, you don't lose yourself trying to please people. You move with certainty, and certainty is intimidating to those who lack direction. You've defeated someone who was supposed to be a threat. And the craziest part? They weren't even worthy of being your opponent. That's why you slayed them by simply existing through their attack. That's why you didn't need to retaliate or compete or prove anything. Your presence alone dismantled them. And now others are watching, realizing that if this is what happens when someone tries to mess with you, then maybe they should keep their intentions pure when they stand next to you. Because your next transformation has nothing to do with revenge or proving points. It's about stepping into a level of authenticity that no one can minimize. It's about choosing yourself without apology. It's about elevating your mindset, your energy, your vision. You're entering a season where your growth will bother people who prefer you small. You're entering a moment where your glow will irritate those invested in dimming you. You're entering a phase where your rise will become impossible to ignore. What you went through wasn't a setback. It was a clearing, a removal of the weak, a collapse of the fake, a revelation of the jealous, a surrender of the irrelevant. That's why the peon who came for you didn't just lose. They erased themselves from your path. They took themselves out by exposing their own motives. You didn't need to do anything. Their downfall was self-inflicted. And here's the thing no one wants to admit. Everyone is talking about it. The same people who doubted you are now replaying your resilience. The same people who questioned your strength are now using you as the example of what endurance looks like. The same people who laughed or whispered or misjudged you are now silent in your presence because they finally understand. You're not the one to mess with. Your transformation is happening in real time. You're stepping into a version of yourself that commands respect without asking for it. You're stepping into a mindset that refuses to be shaken. You're stepping into a presence that exposes false motives instantly. And as you rise, the world around you will adjust, because it has to. Power shifts the environment. Growth shifts the atmosphere. Clarity shifts the dynamics. People will approach you differently now. They'll speak to you differently. They'll think twice before taking advantage. They'll analyze their intentions before stepping to you. Not because you changed who you are, but because you finally embraced who you've always been. And this is only the beginning. Because if you could slay another peon without effort, imagine what will happen when you start moving with intention. Imagine what will happen when you stop giving your energy to people beneath your level. Imagine what will happen when you step fully into your glow. Imagine what will happen when you stop doubting your impact. Imagine what will happen when you stop softening your truth. You weren't supposed to survive that situation, but you didn't just survive, you transformed. You rose, you awakened, you elevated, you exposed, and now everyone who watched it happen understands a truth they can't unsee. You're not the one to mess with. You never were. You never will be.